To have Steve Mnuchin join us today. So you were one of very few private investors who were allowed by the government to purchase. You purchased IndyMac to purchase a failed bank. Why were you allowed to do that? Why were you one of the handful?
Well, first of all, what I'd say is we bought IndyMac in December of 2008. And as you recall, it was just about the bottom of the markets and when there was a lot of concern about the banking sector overall. IndyMac traditionally was really more of a mortgage bank than a bank. So a lot of the strategic banks were not interested in IndyMac. So I think, we were excited that we were able to put together private capital to come into the banking sector, really when the banking sector needed support, and buy IndyMac as a going concern. And I think in that sense, the FDIC found that very compelling.
So your investor team includes some very big names: Flowers, Paulson, Michael Dell's financial arm, George Soros Fund. What was their mandate to you as chairman of now OneWest Bank? What do they want you to accomplish?
Well, I think one of the things, and I think one of the advantages for us is that we've had a very supportive investor group that are private investors and are focused on us building the long-term value of the bank. So really, the objective from day one was to take IndyMac, rebrand it, and use it as a platform to grow in California on the West Coast. So we ended up 2 years later, we've rebranded it. We also bought First Fed of Santa Monica and La Jolla Bank. We put them all together, and we now have the largest bank headquartered in Southern California. So that really was the mandate from day one, to try to grow it and create a significant regional bank.
And just to be a strong player in the regional banking market. So how long, what's your investment horizon? How long before you'd like to take the bank public?
Well, I'd say we're in no rush to take the bank public. We're really, starting on day one, we had a 5-year plan, and I think we're 2 years into the 5-year plan. And when I tell people this, whether we're hiring them or anything else, they say, well, what happens after the 5-year plan? And I say, well, I think 5 years is pretty long-term oriented. It's hard to think in 10-year periods.
But what are some of the criteria that you would like to see? What are some of the objectives you'd like to have met before you go to the public market?
Well, I think phase one was doing the acquisitions and integrating them. And I think that was a big part of what we've accomplished over the last 2 years, including the rebranding and bringing in new technology. Phase two is really now taking the platform and making it a significant regional bank. So one of the things, we brought in a new CEO at the end of last year, Joseph Otting, who is vice chairman of U.S. Bank and ran all of their commercial banking. And I think one of our big focus is now taking what's primarily a consumer bank and turning it also into a business bank.
So you're not heading onto the public markets now, but more broadly, what are conditions like in the IPO sector for financial companies?
Well, I think they're quite strong. I mean, there's been 2 recent IPOs of First Republic and Bank United. So I think the market is quite strong for these types of companies. I think from our standpoint, not having to worry about quarterly earnings and being long-term oriented right now is still a big advantage for us.
Let's talk a little bit about your growth plan, starting with, we're hearing a lot from these panels here. Still, we need to get banks lending again, mid-sized businesses to consumers. What are you seeing?
Well, I think this is one of the great things, that banks want to lend. So, when people ask me what's one of our biggest challenges is loan growth. What we're setting with tremendous liquidity at the bank, a lot of it sitting at the Federal Reserve, we'd like to turn that into loans. So that's really our primary focus right now.
And so how are you doing that?
I think, we're reaching out to regional companies, and I think one of the things we found is that there really is a significant role for a regional bank, and not that there's not a significant role for obviously the major banks, but regional banks can very effectively coexist with the nationwide banks.
Can you give us a sense of where you're looking for additional acquisitions? Are you going to continue to stay in California, expand within the Western region? What's the plan?
I'd say we always thought we'd be West Coast oriented. That was really the purpose of the name OneWest. We never thought we'd just be Southern California, but now that we are so California focused, I think in terms of our internal growth will go up and down the coast. I think in terms of looking at other acquisitions, they'd have to be West Coast oriented, and they'd have to be of enough size and scale that they now be meaningful to the bank.
I know that you've become very focused in your new role as number one, a Californian, and number two, a leader of a California bank on the California economy. What are the prospects for encouraging job growth?
Well, it's interesting. I just left a panel this morning that was a private session on California and was really focused on the California economy, and had a group of business people, a group of politicians, really a group from all sectors. And I think that there's a tremendous focus now on what can we do in California to create jobs and lower the unemployment rate. So I think that's really our biggest issue. Okay,
so what were the answers? What can we do? We're a lot of talking about it, as you know.
I think there's 100 answers to that, which starts, I'm very supportive of the governor and what he's trying to do with the budget. I think that that's a big priority right now in terms of fixing the budget. I think that California, it's a great place to be. Everyone wants to do business in California. It's one of the largest economies. I think there's a lot of things that both the federal and state and local governments can do to make it a little easier to do business here. But I think that the politicians here are focused on a lot of the right issues.
Great. Steve Mnuchin will continue to follow your progress and the progress of OneWest Bank. Thanks as always.
Thank you very much.